Welcome back to the SMT YouTube channel. Appreciate having you guys here for this video. Please do like and share it. Let's go ahead and get this thing going here. The article from SDX Central. Verizon CEO states 6G must learn from 5G follies. I have a completely different perspective on this. I read the whole article and I understand the chief technical officer of Verizon, what he's saying. And I agree with everything he says. But I think there's a bigger problem in what happened with the whole 5G deployment, the whole 5G race, all of those things. And in this article, he kind of describes the reason why 5G happened the way it did, with non-standalone 5G and standalone 5G being this kind of dichotomy of connectivity. And the basic premise of it is that you have a 4G LTE network that you run and operate. Meanwhile, you were trying to transition and sunset 3G and even 2G services. Like that has been a thing for the last several years. So all of the legacy technologies, all the legacy networking, core operations and those things, you could not transition to a standalone 5G network completely until all of that spectrum has been moved over and refarmed to the 5G NR standard. And you need to upgrade every single piece of hardware on the network, right? So we're literally talking about towers getting upgraded and built as standalone 5G networking gear. And that's long, painful, grueling process. And customers are, some customers upgrade regularly. That they're not the problem. But some people hold on to legacy devices. You have some businesses who have, alarm systems, homes that have alarm systems. You have connected devices, IoTs, that were just purchased within the last couple of years that are LTE, so there's always going to be an element of LTE operation, at least for the next 10 years or whatever, who knows how long. But the bigger problem for Verizon has been the fact that, and this is not just Verizon, AT&T faced this issue too. The only company that didn't face the issue was T-Mobile because of the Sprint merger, right? They were legitimately able to have enough spectrum for two companies. So they were able to basically build an entire 5G network while still operating their base 4G network as they transition customers. The biggest problem for Verizon was the fact that they were just waiting for spectrum. I mean, even to today, you still hear this narrative, which is completely false and untrue, that Verizon chose mmWave and they made the wrong decision. They built what was available. There was no mid-band spectrum, and the government was not going to let Verizon consume Sprint or merge with AT&T or, there just was no mid-band spectrum, right? We're talking about the frequencies that reach several miles. There was none of that. So they were just building mmWave for the time being. And if you notice, as soon as they got the mid-band spectrum with C-band, all of a sudden they put mmWave on pause, right? And even to this day, the mmWave build has been very slow. And the focus really has been mid-band, and it's been densification, and it's, the macro upgrades, the big towers, not necessarily the small cells as much. So that's what's real, right? The problem, in my opinion, I don't know how much of it was 5G NSA versus SA, but the bottom line is it was a spectrum deficiency. It was the FCC's fault. It always has been, and in my opinion will always be, because our agencies that are supposed to regulate and lead, they don't do that well in this country. They really don't. In fact, the current FCC, which I thought the last one was awful, I thought this new one, it couldn't get worse. It absolutely has been worse. They haven't done anything good. You might make the argument that they forced Dish's hand and forced spectrum away from them and put it to use for AT&T. You may think that's a good thing. I personally think we're better off with another competitor, but that's what the FCC decided. They decided they wanted to put an end to Dish Wireless, and that's what they did, right? They completely changed the landscape of the industry, and trust me, it ain't for the better. It really isn't. The best thing would have been getting spectrum to the industry without destroying a competitor, but they were unable to do that, right? So the FCC has been the problem. They continue to be the problem. And these you know, within the industry, these companies like Verizon and T-Mobile and AT&T, they're constantly trying to deal with what's handed to them, right? They're playing the hand that's dealt. And that's where I think Verizon saying that they must learn from 5G follies. The only thing I could say that Verizon could have did different was just buying more spectrum at the auctions when they had the chance, right? So in those auctions for the AWS spectrum back in the 2010s, you know, not letting Dish get all that spectrum, you know, Verizon should have spent more, you know. I don't know. I don't know what else they could have did. Maybe that's the only thing. I don't know. Maybe getting involved with the 600 megahertz spectrum that T-Mobile ended up buying. Maybe they could have did that. So you could point to a couple of things they could have did differently, but I still put a huge stain on FCC because they basically set back both AT&T and Verizon. They really only facilitated the strength of T-Mobile. That's the only company they really helped in the last decade. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, is this really a technology thing? Like, is it really a technology problem? Or is it more so a spectrum deficiency problem? That's my position. But it's an interesting read. You guys can check out the article. A little bit of a long-winded video, but I had to say what I had to say, I guess. But drop me some comments, like, share, subscribe, check out some more videos. We'll see you guys soon on the next one.